The man is seriously injured and there are thousands of zombies behind him. Rick, now losing blood and exhausted from walking, couldn't continue much longer. Not much further. Rick's consciousness became blurred, and his feet began to float. Finally, he collapsed once again. Rick had reached the large bridge. Looking back at the countless zombies, a sense of desolation swept over him, with his strength waning, and as he was about to rest, Daryl's voice roused him. Rick turned to see that everyone had arrived. Rushing towards the zombies, Michonne quickly came over to Rick to check on his injuries and told him not to worry, they would save him. Rick shook his head and said, Michonne could only offer continuous comfort. Urging Rick to hold on, she said, "Do you know why I fell in love with you? Because you're a fighter, never giving up, so fight for all of us." Rick woke up again, still lying on the bridge, zombies still trailing behind, though the previous scene was a dream. Seeing everyone gave Rick a newfound understanding. This bridge was thought by Rick to be the way to the future. Only now did he realize that the future wasn't the bridge. It was everyone who was still alive. With these thoughts in mind, Rick decided to lead the zombies onto the bridge and let the river wash them away. His severely injured body, stumbling steps. Rick wasn't much faster than the zombies. His abdominal blood had soaked his clothes, dripping down with each step he took. Rick was tired all the time. Since waking up in the hospital, he hadn't truly lived for himself, constantly on edge. His thoughts were always about ensuring the survival of his family and friends. It wasn't until he became mates with Michonne that he began to have a life of his own. Soon enough, Rick unsteadily made it to the other side of the bridge. Now he waited for the zombies to reach the wooden planks, but the planks were stronger than he expected and didn't collapse as expected. Now he was at a loss. On the other side of the bridge lay the hilltop, and the consequences of such a massive horde of zombies crossing were unimaginable. Rick found himself without a solution. He could feel his endurance waning, his steps slowing down. Rick turned around and saw his dear friends approaching. Michonne and the others were there too. Seeing his loved ones, Rick's eyes welled up with tears. Being able to see everyone before his death meant that he had no regrets. Rick wanted to shout at them not to come closer. The number of zombies was just too overwhelming, but his weakened body couldn't muster a loud cry. As the zombies closed in, Rick, despite the excruciating pain, staggered forward to kill them. More zombies needed to gather on the wooden planks to have a chance at collapsing them. Daryl could only provide covering fire for his dear friend from a distance. At that moment, a zombie bumped a box on the bridge, revealing explosives inside. An idea flashed through Rick's mind to blow up the bridge. Michonne and the others ran to the zombies' side, attempting to lure them away. They noticed Rick's actions.
I found him.
As the explosion echoed through the sky, the bridge shattered. Tears welled in Daryl's eyes. The explosion was massive. Although Rick wasn't at the center of the explosion, his severe injuries made his chances of survival slim. The explosion triggered radio transmissions from all directions. They all know that Rick blew up the bridge to stop the zombies, including Jadis, who was waiting in the distance to make the deal. Learning of Rick's presumed demise weighed heavily on her. After all, he had accepted her when she was alone. While lost in thought, Jadis noticed a helicopter appearing in the sky behind her. Jadis hastily pulled out her pistol, and in the absence of a trade item, she was prepared to coerce her opponent into taking her away by force. That's when Jadis notices the bodies of zombies floating inside in the river water. So you can imagine the gruesomeness on the bridge. Wait, there's a blood-red figure on the bank. A suspicion formed in Jadis' mind. The helicopter hovered above Jadis' head. With just a quick glance, she rushed to the riverbank to investigate. Then a look of surprise came over Jadis' face. It was Rick, and he was alive. The mysterious person warned Jadis to abandon any tricks, as her agreed-upon plan seemed to have shifted from A to B. Jadis, earnestly, assured that this wasn't a trap and threw her gun to the ground to prove it. Jadis had initially intended to use force against the mysterious person, and Rick's appearance unexpectedly turned him into her ticket, a win-win situation where she could save Rick as well. There was no response on the radio, but the helicopter began to descend slowly. It is surmised that A, as the mystery man calls it, is a newly infected human, and B is some kind of special population. No one knew that Jadis had brought Rick onto the helicopter, heading towards an unknown destination. Ultimately, whether Rick could survive and reunite with his people was now in the hands of fate. When the aftermath of the explosion had settled, everyone searched along the river for any trace of Rick. Despite witnessing the devastating explosion, a glimmer of hope persisted in their hearts, especially in Michonne's. On the third day, Michonne had combed the riverbank, killing numerous zombies, but she hadn't found any sign of Rick. However, she did discover his revolver buried in the sandy soil. 6 months later, Michonne was still searching, her belly now prominently rounded. That's right, Michonne was pregnant with Rick's baby. The others gave up after a month, because everyone knew Rick was dead, or he'd be back. Michonne couldn't accept it without finding his body, clinging to that last thread of hope. And of course, so did one other person, Daryl. For half a year, Daryl hadn't returned to Alexandria Safe-Zone but had traveled far and wide along the river, still searching for Rick. With these words, this is the true essence of brotherhood. Like Rick, Daryl had been living for others all this time.
I think I'll stop living.
You don't need to do that.
Whatever.
The following day, some strangers arrived outside the gates of Alexandria Safe-Zone. With Rick absent, Michonne temporarily assumed the role of leader. Scott explained that he had spotted this group of children wandering nearby. The adults were injured, so he brought them back. Michonne turned to look and found it hard to believe. The woman across from her was equally surprised. They had been the best of friends 15 years ago, and now they had crossed paths in this apocalypse. Naturally, the lady called Jocelyn was well entertained and her injuries treated, but she seemed eager to leave, claiming that others were waiting for her. Michonne could only console her old friend, encouraging her to speak up if she had any difficulties. It turned out that Jocelyn led a group of children and had some still waiting for her return outside. Knowing this, Michonne, accompanied by Rosita and others, ventured out to investigate. Inside a dimly lit house, they found several children as Jocelyn had described. From then on, Jocelyn and her group of children stayed in Alexandria Safe-Zone. These children are so capable that they can hunt alone and handle the ingredients. The children of Alexandria Safe-Zone enjoyed their time with them, engaging in storytelling and games. The atmosphere was harmonious. Michonne felt at ease allowing Judith and a few other kids to play with them. Sometimes, when the play got too tiring, they would spend the night at Jocelyn's house. But one morning, a week later, several parents came to Jocelyn's house to pick up their children, as usual, and knocked on the door, but there was no response. When they came in, the house was empty. No matter how much they shouted, there was no response. Growing anxious, they split up to search. Scott, entering the storage room, was taken aback. The shelves were stripped of food. He urgently called for Michonne, as the person guarding the storage room had been killed. Another woman rushed over to report that the infirmary had suffered the same fate, completely ransacked. Michonne noticed bloodstains on the floor that led to a manhole cover. It was Michonne who told Jocelyn the secret of the sewer entrance. Michonne realized she had made a grave mistake. Judith and several children had been taken by them. Despite her pregnancy, Michonne joined Daryl to search for them. She couldn't fathom how her friend had turned into this. Not only did she steal, but she killed people and took children from the community. Following Daryl's tracking skills, they come to an abandoned school. As soon as Michonne got there, she spotted the child who had been following Jocelyn. The child's demeanor had changed. No longer gentle, the child now brandished a knife with a cold, distant gaze. Then the child dashed off in another direction. Michonne pursued the child into a building, while Daryl, hearing the commotion, silently entered as well. He turned a corner just in time to witness Michonne and the children in a standoff. Michonne reluctantly lowered her weapon. She wanted to check on Daryl but was struck by the child and knocked unconscious. When they woke up again, they found themselves suspended. They didn't care that Michonne was pregnant. One of them took a red-hot iron and burned Daryl on the back. All these cruel actions had been taught by Jocelyn. Jocelyn had deliberately gathered so many children, exploiting others' compassion and using them to obtain resources. She indoctrinated them with the belief that in the apocalypse, only the strong survive. Soon after, the children heated the branding iron again. When the men went out, Daryl used his experience to defeat the guards and drop Michonne. They decided to split up in their quest to find Judith and the other missing children. Michonne walks quietly up the stairs with a steel pipe just as Jocelyn comes out with some children. The young boy immediately blew a whistle hanging around his neck. Several children quickly moved Judith and the others through the back door, locking it behind them. Jocelyn ordered 2 children to kill Michonne and left the scene herself. Michonne didn't want to harm the children, so she simply pushed them away. However, the young girl attempted to kill Michonne. As Michonne bent down to pick up a knife from the ground, the young boy seized the opportunity and slashed her abdomen. This unexpected attack shocked Michonne, but fortunately, the wound wasn't deep. Michonne wanted to kill the boy with a stick, but she refrained. She just picked up her long knife. Realizing they were outmatched, the two children fled. Michonne attempted to open the back door, but it was locked. Michonne had to quickly get to the front door, worried about Judith. Michonne lost her usual caution. Michonne just comes out and gets clubbed down by Jocelyn, who then whacks Michonne hard with a wooden baton. Michonne quickly used her back to shield herself from the blows. Judith and the other children were taken into a caravans. Seizing an opportunity, Michonne retrieved her katana and thrust it through Jocelyn's leg before delivering a fatal blow. This woman was no longer the friend Michonne had known. She was unworthy of living in this world. Witnessing Jocelyn's death, the remaining children grabbed weapons and approached Michonne cautiously. Michonne reassured them that they could return to Alexandria Safe-Zone, where everyone would take care of them. However, the eldest boy among them ordered one child to kill Judith and instructed the others to restrain Michonne. Michonne killed the big boy. Her heart was in a bad place. Another child rushed at her, aiming for her abdomen again. Michonne had no choice but to swing her long knife, even though she had 1,000 feelings. This was Michonne's bottom line. Only the boy who had stormed into the caravan remained. Michonne stopped him and warned him not to do it. The boy was frightened by Michonne's intensity and froze in place. Finally, the boy put away his knife and fled into the distance. The lovely Judith came out. Her eyes went to the bodies of the children and then to her mother, who was covered in blood. Judith froze in place instead of jumping on her. Michonne's heart sank. Did this mean Judith was distancing herself from her now? Daryl arrived, and the other children began to come out as well. Eventually, Michonne led the children back to Alexandria Safe-Zone, where waiting parents were relieved to see them unharmed. Following this incident, Alexandria Safe-Zone underwent significant reforms. The position of leader was abolished in favor of a committee. Gabriel was appointed chairman, with 6 members forming the committee. Michonne became the security chief, holding veto power over committee decisions. This event served as a wake-up call. The committee decided that from then on, Alexandria Safe-Zone would focus solely on the well-being of its residents. Though not what Rick and Carl had envisioned, their primary concern was protecting their loved ones from harm. Another year passed. The kingdom faced multiple challenges, and their crops yielded minimal harvests. They sought assistance from the Hilltop and Alexandria Safe-Zone. The Hilltop, led by Jesus, generously provided the requested aid. The Alexandria Safe-Zone Committee also decided to help, but at Michonne's insistence, they only sent a very small amount, because Alexandria Safe-Zone had previously decided to be responsible only for its own people. However, Tara secretly brought additional supplies, intending to live at the Hilltop after this incident. Tara didn't want to go back to a community where friends faced difficulties, yet they refused to offer help. This event strained the relationship between Maggie and Michonne, causing the kingdom to distance themselves from Alexandria Safe-Zone.